Welcome to the Special Education Essentials for Parents and Families podcast with your host, David Tollner. In each episode, we'll have guests who are professionals in the special education and disability services industry who support children with special needs. The law is complex, and this podcast does not cover all situations, legal responsibilities, or variations in different circumstances. This podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only, and nothing contained in this podcast should be construed as legal advice. The views expressed in this podcast may not be those of the host or the firm. We are not responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that may arise from the use of this podcast. This podcast is not intended to replace legal advice. You can find this show on all the major platforms including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and on our website, TollnerLawOffices.com. Now, here's the host of Special Education Essentials for Parents and Families, David Tollner.
Yes, welcome everyone again to the latest episode of Special Education Essentials. I am your host, David Tollner, as always. Thank you for joining us. Today we have a special guest, April McCoy, who comes to us from a nonprofit agency called LACY, which stands for Legal Advocates for Children and Youth. Welcome, April. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us. Before we get in to LACY and everything that they do, I want to tie it in, as I always try to do, to earlier episodes where we've talked about knowing what's in your community. It's very important when you have a child with special needs and you're on an IEP and they're on an IEP that you understand what supports are available to you, right? Not just in terms of advocacy, but also in terms of special programs, anything related to education that you can access in your community to better your child's IEP and the progress that they make in school, right? Very, very important. That's why you're listening to this podcast. LACY stands out as a wonderful organization that we work with at times very closely. We'll share cases because they represent a subset of children with special needs, right, that often cannot afford either the advocates that we have interviewed on this show or attorneys like ourselves. And so they really fulfill an important role in the special ed spectrum in terms of how do you learn about IEPs, how do you learn about how to get a better program for your child, and where do you go to get that information and to get advocacy help when you need it. So that's the tie-in, right? The message is that we talked about early on, know what's in your community. There may not be a LACY per se in your community, but there is going to be something like it wherever you are, hopefully wherever you are in the nation. So with that, again, April, welcome. Please tell us about both yourself and how you got to LACY and why you're there, and then about LACY itself.
Okay. Well, hello, everyone. My name is April McCoy. And I'm an attorney, and I specialize in special education and school discipline defense. I got into this work. I started working for LACY a few years ago, just 2 years ago. And I was interested in it because I have my own child with special needs who's been in special ed since he was 4 years old, and he's almost 14, so about 10 years. And he started with a very typical path. He went in for a speech delay. So we got him those speech services. But around second grade, we started to notice that he wasn't developing in terms of reading and writing. So we requested an evaluation for that and revised his IEP. But I also got him some private tutoring to address his reading needs, because I did have him also privately assessed and diagnosed with dyslexia. So I put him through that process of getting him the specific instruction, the structured literacy that you hear about. And it took a lot of work, but he's doing great now. And it's seeing that kind of transformation in a child that draws me to this work. So when there was an opportunity at LACY, I jumped on it because I honestly love this work. So LACY, again, it stands
April,
for.
let me interrupt you really quick, and I apologize, but I think that's a great message. If you're an attorney out there and you're listening to this, it is a great practice area. It's a feel-good practice area. You get to really change lives, and there are many practice areas, and many attorneys know this, that are not that enjoyable. I used to work in those practice areas, and then I became a special ed attorney and could not be more fulfilled, right? There's that piece that special ed gives you that is a sense of fulfillment that really matters, with or without the background that you described, right, in your own life and how you got drawn into special ed.
Yeah, I mean, it really does feel good. To me, like, I remember when I had my second child, actually, I was an attorney and I was doing family law at the time. I did family law for like 12 or 13 years before I started working with LACY. And at the time when I had him, one of my clients, I was telling him that I was taking a break from working because I had a child. And he told me that, oh, well, you're doing the most important work in the world. And I mean, it's really true. Like, raising children, especially children with special needs, it is the most important work in the world. And that's what draws me to it. And I'm just very passionate about helping kids.
Wonderful. Yeah, we hear that. This is an industry that is full of wonderful humans, I think, that have taken on that role to be advocates for people that really need it. And so thank you very much, and thank you for doing it at LACY. And so who does LACY serve?
Okay, so just going back to LACY, again, it stands for Legal Advocates for Children and Youth. And we are a program of a larger nonprofit called the Law Foundation of Silicon Valley, which is the largest legal aid services nonprofit in Santa Clara County. So the Children and Youth program, LACY, has a few teams in it. So we have a dependency team, and the dependency team represents every foster child in Santa Clara County. We have a contract with the county, and we serve all of those kids. We also have a team that works on representing children in contentious divorce cases or domestic violence cases, and sometimes guardianship cases when, there's a situation where they need to be cared for by somebody other than their parents, usually another family member. We also do a small area of immigration for children. It's called Special Immigrant Juvenile Status, which is a pathway for youth 21 and younger who've been harmed by one or both of their parents and can't go back to their home country. That avenue, we call it SIGIS, is a pathway to citizenship for those children and youth. And then finally, we have the education team, which is what I'm part of. And we get our clients a lot of times from our different projects, from our different teams. So we get a lot of foster youth. We have a contract with the Department of Family and Children's Services, and we get referrals. If there's a foster youth who is having an issue with education, they can schedule a consult with us, and they can meet with like county social workers with us and a education consultant outside, like a private one that comes to our meetings, and we can consult about whatever education needs they have. We also have a partnership, a medical legal partnership with the safety net healthcare system in the county, Valley Medical Center. And through the pediatricians there, they refer children with like the full range of disabilities, whether it's like a medical disability, an emotional disability, a learning disability. Any student who's having an issue with school, they get referred to us through our medical legal partnership, and we screen all of those kids and families and try to, number one, empower them to do what they can on their own to advocate for their own children, and assess the situation as things develop to see if they need further assistance. So we serve really the indigent population of Santa Clara County. And we get referrals from all of those sources. We also have an intake line, and people can call in. But as you can imagine, I mean, this is a lot of families and a lot of students. So we only have at the moment there are four attorneys and a supervising attorney, and one community education advocate. It's a lot. It's a lot for us, but we do our best to really get the information out there so that people know what their rights are and have the resources to do what they can on their own. And in situations where people really need help, we may take it further to represent them, to really advocate for what their child needs.
Yeah, which is wonderful. And I'm very impressed that the system has that legal medical relationship that you have with Valley Med is very rare from my experience, right? But also it strikes me as insanely important because as soon as that pediatrician at Valley Med sees an issue, right, there's a pathway that is almost automatic, it sounds like, to advocacy, right? To the IEP system and to this supports associated with special needs children and youth, which doesn't exist outside of that, right? I mean, all pediatricians should have that same pathway or something they can do to say, we just diagnosed your child with autism. Here's what you need to do next. But as far as we can tell, very few pediatricians are set up that way. And so the parents are left with an awful lot of questions and not an awful lot of direction. Whereas it sounds like they get that, at least that direction in a clear pathway almost automatically once a diagnosis has been delivered. Is that how that plays out? Because that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's yes, actually, I am the medical legal partnership lead. So I'm responsible for really fostering those, making sure they're aware of like what things they can refer to us. So, and they do, they're very good. We have wonderful pediatricians at Valley Medical Center. And we because we have that medical legal partnership, those cases are always prioritized for us. So we always tell people that if you get your healthcare through Valley Medical Center and there is an issue that you're having at school, ask your pediatrician for a referral, because that is the best way to get to us, to fast track that connection, to get some support and some guidance.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me how, if I'm a parent, I'm listening to this and no way I want to or can afford to hire an attorney or an advocate, although I will follow up that statement with this one, and that is there are many attorneys, including our office, that do this work pro bono. We call it fee recovery, and that it doesn't cost the client anything to be represented by us, which is, of course, the same for you, right? Your clients don't pay anything.
Yes,
to the county.
none of our clients ever have to pay for our services.
Wonderful.
That's right. Yeah.
And so run through for us, if you would, a typical case, right? Somebody, let's say you get a pediatrician. What can that parent or somebody listening expect from being introduced to LACY, and what happens with that relationship moving forward?
Once we get a referral from our health partners at Valley Medical Center, the first step is we do an intake, and it's just a series of questions about, the child and the family and what's been going on at school. And a lot of times after doing that intake, there are immediate resources that we can give to those parents that can help them advocate on their own and really empower them to do the best advocacy that they can do just on their own. We have a wonderful community education advocate who's bilingual, Spanish and English, and who is really fantastic at communicating with parents and really empowering them and giving them the information that they need. So I would say that the majority of our intakes are taken care of at that level. Sometimes parents might need a little bit more assistance, and at that point we can escalate it and assign it to an attorney to, review records and see what's going on and evaluate what steps need to be taken further. In cases where direct representation is needed, a lot of times we will refer out to private attorneys such as Tollner or other private attorneys around the state who take on these cases pro bono to do the fee recovery work. And in limited cases, we also can do that work on our own. But one of the issues that we have is capacity, just because we are really the only nonprofit that serves children and youth in this capacity in the entire county. And I think there's like 31 or 32 school districts. And as you can imagine, it's just a lot of students. So in limited cases, in a few cases, we are able to take on direct representation, but it's pretty rare because we just have so many kids that we need to serve. So yeah.
Will you go to IEPs and support them there or prep them for that? It sounds like a mixture of both.
It's a mixture of both. Which really, again, it just comes down to capacity. If we had a larger team, we could do more. But, the need is so great that we really try to educate and counsel parents to do as much of this work as they can on their own. In some situations, some families might need a little bit extra help. And we can serve those cases, as determined on a need basis. So, but really we're trying to reach as many families as we can because we're just trying to make sure that, as many kids are helped as can be helped. So,
we're barely touching the tip of the iceberg. As a statewide firm, I feel we're barely touching the tip of the iceberg. I'm sure you feel the same way. There's so many kids, 10% of every district on average is a child on an IEP. And I've got to believe 1 or 2% of that statewide or nationally, maybe even less, are represented, with some level of advocacy. And which means, which is why this podcast is here and why LACY is there to provide information. So if you don't have an advocate near you or you can't afford one, you have the tools that you need to have a better IEP and drive progress for your child. So that's absolutely essential in my mind. We need to get parents to understand they have rights, because I'm sure that you see this all the time. They come to you and they know nothing, right? And even if they've been in the system, it sounds like they get to you a lot earlier, which is really smart. When I get a client that comes in because they just got a diagnosis and they say, I just want to learn this system, I'm very proud of them. And I tell them that. I say, listen, that is so smart, because you're about to enter a system you're going to be in for a while, potentially. But most people wait a long time until things are a disaster, right? Until their child hasn't made any progress for a very long time before they reach out to an advocate. And it's never too late, but I always feel like, gosh, I wish I had this student 5 years ago or even 10 years ago, and which is a common refrain from my parents, which is, I wish we reached out to an advocate long before. But it sounds like one of the beautiful things about LACY are twofold. There's many more than that even. One, you're educating them from the get-go, right? And you're reaching an entire population that can sometimes be a little scared to come forward, right? Because, right, they don't speak the language. The parents sometimes do not speak very good English. They have zero understanding that they have rights nonetheless, and that getting information like that from someone like you and LACY is everything to
Yes.
the progress their child can make.
Yes, and we work really hard to meet parents where they are, really. We have our community education advocate is bilingual Spanish, but we use translators all the time to speak with our clients. And, a lot of us are trying to learn Spanish to sort of just reach that population the best that we can. But, like sometimes the language barrier can be a real issue. And sometimes it's, an issue that a family might be having at school really is due to a language barrier between the parents and the district. And sometimes all that's needed is for somebody to go in and just bridge that communication gap. And in those situations, like I had a client like recently who had been out of school for about a year, and the mom was having a hard time communicating with the district to get a placement for him. But like once I stepped in there and started communicating with the district, we were able to get him back in school. And that's really what we want to prioritize too. What's high on our priority list is kids who are out of school for some reason, whatever reason, because we just want kids to have access to their education. But yeah, that's
seen it. I'm sure you've seen it as well. COVID now 5 years old, but still very much with us in special ed because kids were set back, so significant delays. But it also we see a lot more school-based anxiety since COVID, and significantly more, and a lot more school refusal than we ever saw before. It reset both parental and student expectations about school. It created anxiety that nobody knew about in an awful lot of children that hasn't gone away yet. We're still seeing higher levels of anxiety-based school issues than we ever saw before, because that was such a difficult period for so many.
Absolutely. I mean, even in the recent conference that you and I both went to for the Council of Parents, Attorneys, and Advocates, COPA, I mean, there were like many breakout sessions about that specific issue. And we're seeing that a lot. But I think, like what I'm learning, it's really just taking each case, like one case at a time, and trying to look at each child as an individual and really trying to do what works for each individual child. It's a tough situation, and I know it's very frustrating for parents. But yeah, that's definitely an issue that we're seeing a lot of, along with every other issue. We're still seeing issues with like kids being behind with their reading and with their math, and we're still seeing school discipline issues, and we see like larger issues like kids who are having behavioral issues and emotional disabilities. We see all of it.
Yes, no, we certainly do, and it doesn't seem it isn't going away. It's going potentially to get worse before it gets better. And just in terms of the numbers, we're not seeing a drop off here 5 years after COVID. We're not seeing a drop off in numbers, at least from our perspective. The work that you do is exceptional, particularly for a subset of our population that needs it more than anybody. So yeah, thank you for that. And I do want to sort of follow up on the COPA thing, because I do think I don't think we've mentioned it yet in this podcast. So if I have a listener or two that is following along from the beginning, COPA, as April was just talking about, does an annual conference, and East Coast, West Coast. So if you're on the East Coast and listening to this, they will be there every other year. We've done, we were in Atlanta a couple years ago, and then we were just in Irvine, April and I, and the whole host. And it's a great place if you're a parent to learn an awful lot about the IEP process and special ed and what's available to you in the law, right? Because it's very much for advocates and parents to learn about how to drive progress for their children, working with the district, right? Or against them in many cases, because we all know districts, some districts are trying not to give you very much because of expenses, because of the cost sometimes for to support some of our children, and learning how to get past that wall, learning it right, how to communicate with the district, the right things to say, the things not to say, which can absolutely destroy your case, are all very important pieces of information that every parent needs. So if you have a COPA that's in your area, or you look into their calendar and you see you know what, maybe I can go to that one. It's a 4-day conference. It's very useful. Everybody leaves thinking they've learned a tremendous amount. So it's something to look into if you're a parent who really wants to understand what your child on an IEP, what that child needs, and what you can potentially get to support your child in a public school district in your area. So consider that. Go ahead.
I think that you can also get a virtual pass as well to those sessions, so that if you weren't able to attend in person, you could attend. Because all of the breakout sessions were recorded and transcribed, I think. So I think that pass is coming out soon, and it's available for parents to access and to purchase. You purchase a pass, and then you can have access to all of the breakout sessions, which is just
even better.
A wonderful resource. Yeah.
Yes. Far
I would
better
definitely,
information for our listeners.
Yeah. There's a lot of resources. When I was a parent working through this system myself, I think the first resource I found was I went to a continuing legal education seminar by Peter Wright. That was local here. And I think it was put on in partnership with Parents Helping Parents. But he's wonderful. If you ever have a chance to go to one of his seminars, it's a day, and you get so many resources. And his website.
And you're absolutely right. He's wonderful.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
Yeah, he is. And he has a number of books out there that if you're getting into this for the first time, that are somewhat some attorney focused, lots of statutory language, but also lots of summaries of the law. That's what you need, right, to be really successful as you deal with the school districts to get more for your child. So Peter Wright is his name. He's all over. You'll be able to find him easily, and he's got a 6 to 10 or maybe even 15. I lost track of how many publications he has, many of which are very useful to parents. And I actually cut my teeth with him. That was my first ever conference 20 years ago when I started special ed. I went to one of his when he came to town.
Yes, I thought his conference is really great because he is also dyslexic, and you can tell by the way that he teaches, because he's a really dynamic teacher. And when he references something in one of his books, he'll tell you what page to go to. He'll tell you to take out the highlighter that you're given as part of a seminar and highlight exactly the words that are important.
Right.
And, it's a very multisensory approach to educating, which is exactly what's needed for dyslexic kids. And you can tell that he has that experience, and it makes him a really great teacher and like an amazing advocate. So if that's definitely a resource to seek out.
Yeah, I haven't seen him come to town recently, so I don't know if he's still doing those, but hopefully he is, so everybody can have that opportunity. But if you don't get a chance for COPA or Peter Wright, there are other agencies, not unlike LACY, that I just wanted to get out there. So, and then the message is that we're obviously coming to you from Santa Clara County in California, which is Northern California. And we're going to give you a list of the things that you can access, the agencies you can access. But agencies like this are everywhere in the nation, right? There are good people doing this kind of work everywhere in the nation. Find the ones that are near you and reach out. If you have any questions about special ed, find out who's giving away that information near where you live and go get that information because you need it. You really do not want to be the parent that goes in once a year to an IEP, trust that the district is going to do everything they can for your child, and then just walk away. It really requires a little work. It requires a little homework. It requires sometimes a little research. But if the better outcomes are the parents that are ready, and under the circumstances, getting ready is there's places you can go to help with that. So take advantage of them. One of them is the Mills Legal Clinic out of Stanford Law School. Abigail Trillin is the one who runs that. I know, April, you think the world of her.
Oh, she's wonderful.
All of us. East Bay Community Law Center out of Berkeley, Legal Aid Society of San Mateo, and then, of course, all over California, the Disability Rights of California is a big organization, nonprofit that's been around a long time that does a lot of good work, both high level and with regard to regional center issues as well, if you're involved with the regional center. And do you mind if I give out the intake line number to LACY?
Sure. Anybody is welcome to call our intake line. But again, we have capacity issues, but if you call, you will be screened and we will give as much information as we can out to parents. So, and I just wanted to mention, you mentioned Disability Rights California, and they're a statewide nonprofit. They do wonderful, wonderful work, but they also have a lot of online resources, like the Special Education Rights and Responsibilities Manual that they have online. And it is a wealth of information for parents. And there are things in there like sample letters, like if you would like to request a psychoeducational assessment of your child and want to initiate that evaluation process to get you to an IEP, there are sample letters in there that give you the exact words to say. For that, there's sample letters in there to do a records request if you want to review any of the records that have been kept on your child. There's really samples of any question that you have. That's a really great place to go to just get some assistance. I highly recommend it.
Wonderful advice. And those letters, those form letters can be very important, right? The legalese can matter. Using the right phrases can matter, right? This is all coming down from a federal statute, the IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And although it's been mirrored by the state of California, that may not be the case in the state that you live in. But laws are very focused on words, and using the right words in special ed can be very important to getting what you're after. So that is a wonderful support document that I have used, or at least used to use quite a bit in the early days, because it was so broad, and it really did touch on just about every issue you can run up against in this business. All right. Go ahead, please.
The one other thing I was going to say, and a lot of these nonprofits that, we've mentioned, sometimes they put on trainings. Like we, for example, put on a compliance complaint training. And a compliance complaint is a tool that you can use when, for example, you have an IEP that says that your child is supposed to be getting speech therapy once a week for 30 minutes. And for whatever reason, the school district isn't providing that to you. So you can file a compliance complaint to address that. And we did a compliance complaint training that was recorded and available to the public that was both in English and in Spanish. So a lot of these nonprofits put on these trainings, and not just ours. all like other ones, they put on trainings, and it's just a matter of finding them and attending them.
Great. Perfect. And that's all very important information you will need to drive progress even further for your special needs child. And matter of fact, it's essential, which is why we call this Special Education Essentials. Thank you, April. That is a wrap for us. I can't thank you enough for joining us and telling us about LACY and the wonderful work that they do. And if you're listening and you have lots of questions, well, you've got now one more resource, many more resources actually, that you can tap into to get answers so that your child does better in school. All right, with that, thank you very much for listening. That is the end of this episode of Special Education Essentials. We hope to see you next time, and I'll see you then. All right, thank you for listening. Thank you, April.
Thank you.
You've been tuning in to the Special Education Essentials for Parents and Families podcast with your host, David Tollner. This podcast is not intended as legal advice and does not create an attorney-client relationship. Please talk to your legal counsel about your own situation. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and on our website, TollnerLawOffices.com. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.